Next week also, the foundation-based exit exams will commence for the elementary schools, and so I also asked the parents, teachers, and students to be diligent, vigilant in keeping their students ready, making sure they stay encouraged. It can be quite emotionally and draining for the students, and it's a first time for them as well, so do keep them encouraged. I have been passing through since Monday to the public schools to encourage our sixth graders and as well get a view of what is going on within the schools. And I must say, from the 3 schools I've visited so far, the Leonard Connor School, the Martin Luther King Junior School, as well as the Mary Genevieve de Weaver, they seem motivated, the teachers are very positive, and I'd like to, via this medium, encourage all 6th graders that you are just at the beginning of your educational journey. You have a long way to go. As St. Martin, we are promoting lifelong learning, so your learning will never end. Don't be despairing if you do not achieve what you have set out to achieve in this first try. You have a long way ahead of you. Sometimes the road is winding, sometimes it goes up hills and goes down in dales. But with your perseverance, your dedication, keeping a strong support group around you, you will achieve your goals and dreams. So never give up, keep on pushing, and I am sure you will meet with success in the end. The process, of course, is something we sometimes lose sight of, and we do not try to enjoy that process. While you're living and learning, you have to enjoy and live life, because as we can see with our sudden passing of our beloved Mr. York, tomorrow's promised to no one. So live well with each other, do your best, and make sure you get enough rest. That is something that definitely we as workaholics sometimes forget to do. In reviewing and listening also to some reports after the carnival season, I must say as Minister of Culture that I am receiving lots of positive feedback from the community, which is appreciated in the way that we have done our best to collaborate with all the stakeholders, including the St. Martin Carnival Development Foundation, the police, etc., to maintain safety and security for especially our youth. There have been minimal reports of the violence that usually plagues our carnival. And even though it was much larger, the police reported, and I heard it this morning on the news, that there were much less fights, much less fines given out, and that there were also less underage youngsters in our celebrations that are geared towards adults. So even though at the onset we were a bit wary as to whether it would have an effect or not, I do believe us coming out in public and stating clearly that what are the rules and parents taking responsibility for their children, that with each year we will see an improvement in this. And we will continue to strive together with the Carnival Development Foundation, together with our cultural icons, to promote especially the cultural aspects of Carnival. We're happy to see that on the economic side that Carnival was very, very successful. I do believe we still have a lot to do to continue to promote the cultural aspects. And as I said before, we have pledged to also support the particular aspects that we find important in this venture, and we hope to be able to do, hopefully together with the SCDF, a joint prize giving ceremony where we can honor those cultural aspects in the Queen shows, the Carnival Calypso competition, as well as the parades, as soon as the paperwork has been finalized. But it is definitely a pleasure for us to contribute to especially the cultural aspects of Carnival as well. And as Mother's Day approaches, coming up next week, Sunday, I would like to wish in advance all mothers and mother figures a very happy Mother's Day week. And Mother's Day, when it comes, I know we have the privilege here on St. Martin to celebrate it twice. Fathers are quite jealous. But as I said to some fathers just last evening in watching a Mother's Day special, when we have more fathers standing up to their roles, we will see more celebrations. And I'm sure this year we will try to equalize the celebrations for males as well as for the females. But this week is for the mothers, and we are not promoting single motherhood, but we have to at least give Jackie jacket and Jill she petticoat, as they say, if a mother is doing it on her own and doing a great job. There are also, of course, fathers doing that, and we will honor you when June comes around. So a happy Mother's Day to all of you out there who are doing it all for your young ones, and for all of those organizations who are out there filling in for mothers. Congratulations to you as well. Congratulations to you, because we continue to say the youth are our future, but it is what we are doing with them today that counts, and parenting is the most important job in the world. So I wish you much success. Celebrate Mother's and Father's Day every day by being the best parents you can be. Have a blessed week.
We will now move over to the question and answer segment. Members of the media are kindly reminded to keep your questions to short and direct queries. We will start with Bibi Hadshaw from SMN Daily News. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Giselle. Good morning, ministers. Minister Gibson, in your statement, you said you visited Beijing for two purposes. One, to discuss the Pearl of China, but somehow you did not give us an update as to that discussion. And where is the project at this point in time, knowing that there is some kind of setback with the deed that has some kind of clause in it?
Thank you, Bibi, for reminding me. It was on my part an oversight to fill you in, but there's so much to talk about that I just thought I should make it short and leave it up to the questioning to see if we could fill in the gap. First of all, let me join my colleagues also in extending my condolences to the York family for their losses. It's a difficult time for them, and our prayers goes out to the York family. I've got to say that during my visit to Beijing, I met with over 20 companies, Chinese companies, who have shown an extreme keen interest in participating in the project. As you know, the project is meant to have St. Martin be a trading center for the Caribbean and Latin America, to have showrooms here so people can see what products China have on display, and to encourage trade with the rest of the Caribbean and Latin America as far as Chinese products are concerned. The developer himself, I can report to you, is very enthusiastic about the project. They have met, indeed, as you pointed out, some delay, and that delay rests actually in the original purchase of the land, because it was discovered that the land has restrictions as to what can be built on the land. And the plans that they had designed and developed to commence with the construction on the property exceeds the restrictions in the deed. So right now the developer is in negotiations with the persons who have rights based on that deed, that's the original seller of the land, to see if they can come to some kind of understanding to accommodate the project. If that does not succeed, then an alternative solution will be looked at that right now the developers don't want to get into. But given the enthusiasm that surrounds the project here as well as in China, I'm confident that something will come out of it if these hurdles can be overcome.
Do you have an idea? We knew that it was slated for March, but with this setback, do you have an idea how soon discussions will conclude and how soon the project will kick off?
No, I'm not part of those discussions. That's between the developer and the owner of the land. So it's hard to predict how long those negotiations are going to take place and whether the negotiation is going to be successful. And if they're not successful, what alternative the developer will pursue. No, I would not be able to make a prediction right now. All I know is that the enthusiasm for it is still at a very high level.
Going into finances, there have been, Minister Gibson, and I asked you this before, people complaining about having being owed and not being paid. Some are saying that the IT situation, it's because of a lack of investment. to upgrade IT. As you can see, all over, people are upgrading their IT. How much St. Martin have invested to upgrade the IT here, especially knowing that the system was not only hacked but had viruses before, which laid a setback?
It is a fact that IT investment have lagged over the years, and that we're now seeing the consequences of it. It is beyond any question that investments in our IT system is necessary to modernize the entire IT system. As far as the tax department is concerned, we have an ongoing project right now that we're pursuing to accomplish that. If you can recall, I raised this during the budget discussions, and with the cooperation of my colleagues, we were able to assign and allocate an initial amount of 6 million guilders in the budget specifically for renovation of the tax department, specifically to modernize the IT system in the tax department so we could bring it to the 21st century. It's unfortunate that this was not foreseen in the past and the necessary investments were not done, but it has our priority. It must be done to be able to serve the public properly, to be able to bring the entire system into the modern world. Separate from that, and I'm pleased to report that I received a letter on Friday last week from the CFT approving all the investments that we have in the capital expenditure section of the budget. So that is something that we should be quite happy about and celebrate. I should add, as far as the approval of this capital budget is concerned, and the approval for the loans for the capital budget, that is the first time that monies are being approved to be loaned by St. Martin for the last 4 years. It's the first time. Last year we had a balanced budget, but no monies were borrowed for capital expenditures because there were funds sitting in a bank previously. The CFT told us utilize those funds first. So no monies were borrowed for capital expenditures. Now this year, and we are now in May, we already got approval to borrow some 30 million guilders on the special program that we have with the Netherlands at low interest rates for capital expenditures on St. Martin, and it's ready to take off. Separate from that, I've also approached the CFT, and who has indicated already that they are prepared to approve it, and that is for a sum of 30 million guilders for the entire overhaul of the tax department. That includes a building to bring the inspectorate as well as the tax receiver under one roof, and to avoid people having to go to the vineyard and then back to the receiver of taxes and then back and forth to get their problems resolved. The CFT has indicated that what they'd like to have from us is a business plan. And that business plan is being prepared. I think I will have it in draft form by this Friday. And that business plan, once we approve it through the COM, we will submit that to the CFT, who has already indicated also that beside this business plan, they want to have a second opinion on this investment. This investment will not be part of the capital expenditures, but is being done separate from the capital expenditures, and it will include not only IT, building, training. It will include everything that we need to have a 21st century tax department functioning the way it should.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Minister. We now move over, and Bibi, we now move over to Stephen Cerillion. You have the floor.
Ministers, good morning. I'm going to start with Minister Arundel. Approximately how many persons visited St. Martin during the Carnival festivities?
The figures of how many people came to St. Martin during the carnival season has not been given as yet. So by next week I should have approximation, but I do know that the stay-over visitors that we had did increase to approximately 92% so far.
The interim director at PGIA recently resigned. Is the ministry any closer now to appointing a director for the airport?
We have not met, the ministry has not met with the airport board as yet, but we have met with the holding, and we have had a few discussions, but in the meantime, no decision has been taken.
Is there anyone that the ministry is looking at to fill in this position?
I cannot say at this point in time.
Thank you, Stephen. We have Alita Singh of the Daily Herald.
Thank you, Giselle. Good morning, Minister. Minister Gibson, a few weeks ago you mentioned you were working on the 2018 budget, and one of the essential parts of that is revenue-generating measures. Could you give an idea now what some of those measures will be and how far along the process is to take them to Parliament?
Well, thank you for that question, Anita. First of all, you will recall that I said that 2017 is a year that attention is going to be given to the reformation or the reform of our tax laws. There is a series of laws, most of which have already been drafted, that are going through the necessary scrutiny and review to be able to submit them to Parliament, because the intention is to submit them so that it can take effect by January 1st, 2018. Revenues remain a scarce commodity in government, and it's necessary that they be augmented. Thoughts such as departure taxes are being considered, increase of room taxes, timeshare taxes, car rental taxes are under consideration. When I say increase, it's similar to the taxes that we have for casinos. And basically the taxes are basically trying to index them to bring them up to date. So not necessarily increases, but simply to have those taxes have the same purchasing power as it had when it was originally put in place. If I refer back to the casinos, 30 years ago, a law was in place saying you pay 50,000 guilders. 30 years later, that 50,000 guilders is no longer 50,000 guilders. It is 50,000 guilders less the purchasing power that this 50,000 guilders have deteriorated over those 30 years. So the intent is to bring it back to a level that has the purchasing power that it had 30 years ago. So not necessarily SEC increases, it's more indexing. When I take into consideration room tax, and I compare it with Aruba and see what yield the government gets from tourism in general in Aruba, their yield is a multiple of the yield that St. Martin gets. Why is that? We have a room tax of 5% that we charge and have difficulties collecting. Aruba, actually, with the system they apply, the Aruba government owns 1/3 of every hotel room in Aruba. Why? Because their room tax amounts to 23.5% of your bill, compared to St. Martin, 5% of its bill. So clearly, something has to be done to be able to make our room taxes more in line with what the region receives in room taxes. Those are the kinds of measures and the way we are reviewing these things and looking at them to make certain that we still remain competitive, but that we increase our yield. As you know, we do not get 1 penny from the departure fees that are charged by the airport and by the harbor. Not 1 penny do we receive. In fact, even from the airport, besides departure fees that they charge, which amounts to something like $42 a passenger, of which we don't receive a cent. We believe that something needs to be done about that, because besides that, we don't even get dividends from them. Well, clearly, you might have a booming tourist economy, and then people will ask in Holland and every place else, how is this possible? There must be graft or something going on. How is it the government does not have money? It does not have money because over the years it was actually guided in this manner to make the government-owned companies financially healthy, to have the government-owned companies invest in anything they can think of, and not give the government and the people of St. Martin their fair share of what is being generated there. Well, that has to change. That has to stop, because this is the manner we will be able to provide to the public the basic services that a country should give to the public.
The CFD approval, could you give an idea of some of the projects that will come online with that money?
Well, the process for the budget, as you know, because that was all at that time outlined, was each ministry is approached as to what are their desires. And of course, everybody have desires that surpasses the reach and the possibilities of the country. And then you get a dialogue of, well, we've got to give and take, and to bring it back within the contours of what it should be. Actually, we have submitted in the budget capital expenditures that amount to something like 75 million guilders. The CFT arbitrarily, I'm going to say, arbitrarily, because it's not rooted in any law. The only restriction that is rooted in law is the interest norm. The interest norm, once you balance your budget, is your ceiling. And the interest norm is what is the average of your GDP growth over 3 years, and 5% of that. That's the maximum that you can borrow to. The CFT arbitrarily has said, based on a comment once the IMF has made, that small island states should aim and limit itself to approximately outstanding loans of 40% of GDP. 40% of GDP. The law does not have that cap, does not have that limitation. CFT is following the IMF suggestion, and based on that has limited us to loans of 30 million guilders for capital expenditures for 2017. In all fairness, of course, you also have to take in consideration your capacity to spend. And in the past, the capacity to spend monies that's available have shown that we don't always have the capacity to spend certain capital expenditures which are available. Case in point is there has been some 17 to 20 million guilders sitting in the bank from since 2014 for capital expenditures that was simply not used, just sat there. So the 30 million that the CFT have agreed, we have accepted to limit 2017 to 30 million guilders, with the proviso that we are not agreeing to the arbitrary cap and limitation that the CFT is imposing upon us that has no legal basis.
Thank you, Alita. We now move over to Mr. Andrew Dick from the Daily Herald.
Good morning to all ministers. Minister Donker, the air operator certificate for St. Martin Airways. We're going on about 2 years that they're waiting to get a response from Civil Aviation. Are you aware about the situation and what is being done concerning that?
I am aware of the situation and is being worked on as we speak. To my knowledge, their information to go out in the Landskuran supposed to be out shortly, within the week or two. And from there, they will move forward concerning their documentations.
Any idea about whether it was approved or not?
No.
Concerning the visitors' fee or tax that you were working on, anytime soon, it will get into Parliament?
Yes, the draft is ready.
Oh.
And the draft has been submitted to the legal department of government. And the legal department have perused it and have requested us to send it to the SER. So we are dealing with some comments they made on it, and we will submit it to the SER so it can continue in the pipeline.
Members of the media will move over to the second round. Due to time constraints, we will only allow one more question per media member. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you. Minister Donker, when I listened to Minister Gibson when he spoke about what is going on with China and how important it is for us to start growing our own food locally, have your ministry start thinking about diversification with the economy, tourism economy now starting to help locals, especially those that are doing agriculture, to give them some kind of boost so that they can at least produce food locally for our people?
Yes, we have. In the inspection department, there was discussions based on different entities that exist within our ministry that we can extend where tourism is concerned. Not only extend on the agriculture side, but also you have the veterinarian, you have all these different areas that needs to be looked into directly once I have that discussion with the department heads on how we can extend also in those areas to, develop on the economy as well. Yes.
Stephen?
Minister Jacobs, it is my understanding that the director of NSI has resigned. Can you tell us as to why?
The reasons why have not been divulged to me as yet. The NSI is a body that has its own structure. What I have been informed of by the sports department is that we do have to evaluate and they're busy sending me an advice to that effect in terms of the number of board members and that kind of thing. And I'm sure that that will sort itself out once that has been regulated. But the objectives of the NSI is to further the development of sports. And if I believe the director had a 1-year contract which would have ended in the next month or two. And so it would have been up for a decision in any case. So if he opted to resign, then I'll hear about it once that advice comes up.
Thank you, Alita.
Thanks again, Giselle. Minister Gibson, on the central bank, do you have any further updates on the situation there, filling the post of the president, etc.?
The central bank continues to be a major challenge. As we sit here, the two managing directors are slated to step down because of age limitations, one in August and the other in November. But if you take the vacation days that he has pending, he too would actually be departing around the same time as the first one. The board of the central bank has addressed this issue and decided 3 votes for and 2 against to extend the directorship of one of the 2 directors. That has resulted in a storm of objections because of stipulation in the bank charter that it requires 5/6 vote to appoint a director or extend the director. It means that a vote of 3-2 to extend does not result. And the vendetta between the board members of the central bank continues, and one has to conclude that they're not acting in the best interests of the bank, because continuation of management of the bank is absolutely necessary. And a board should take that in consideration, put their personal things aside, and make the necessary recommendations to ensure and safeguard its continuity. The 2 countries, the ministers of finance of the 2 countries, cannot act without a recommendation from the board. And that recommendation has to be in accordance to the articles in the statutes, the articles of incorporation of the bank. So we are at an impasse. In the meantime, as you know, we had elections in Curaçao. And the position of Minister of Finance of Curaçao is an interim position pending the formation of the new government. But that minister, as well as myself, in order to act, needs recommendations from the board. So I've written a letter to all board members pointing out to them the dire situation that the bank is in and the need to set their differences aside and to come up with recommendation in the interest of the bank that meets the requirements of the charter of the bank. That I'm waiting on a response on. What will not happen and cannot happen is that we get to a crisis situation that we have no management in the bank. If they allow it to come to that point, I think that I will have no other choice but to ask for the dismissal of all of the board members and to appoint a complete new board of board members of the central bank.